Thanks, everyone who participated in the raffle tonight. We will give away more skins next week during the raffle next week. So if you are here at Roosters B Street, we'll give away some more prizes in our raffle. We gave away some prizes from Gear 30, some skins, which is very good. Also, skins, beacon, and probe are on sale this next week at Gear 30. 20% off skins, beacon, and probe. Thanks to Ogden Avalanche. And we'll get started with the Ogden Avalanche B Street Speaker Series Terrain with Ben Bauter in just a minute.
Since I came to know you, baby, I've been telling you how sweet you are. I've been telling you how good you are. Now I want you to try to tell me how I look. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, please tell me how I look.
You look so good, fantastic man.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We're going to start the presentation in about 5 minutes, so get your last beer, chug whatever's left. Let's go.
Since I came to know you, baby, I've been telling you how good you are. I've been telling you how sweet you are. I've been telling you how lovely you are. I've been telling you how nice you are. Now I want you to try to tell me how you look. Look at me, baby, look at me. Look at me, my girl, look at me. I want you to try to tell me how you feel about me, babe. I want you to try to tell me how I look. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, please tell me how you look.
You look so good, fantastic man.
Okay, a little bit of housekeeping right at the beginning. A little bit of housekeeping. Ben, what is the word that we're supposed to drink to tonight? What's the drinking word? Is this a drinking game? If you're at home playing along, we should have. This is a drinking game presentation. So every time you hear the word
Terrain.
take a drink. Terrain. Oh my God, it's called terrain. We're done
where's
for.
Colby at?
I don't know. Where's
Somebody
Colby?
know. Terrain.
Terrain. Every time you hear the word terrain, it's
Terrain.
take a drink time. Goodness. All right, Ben's ready. You getting a beer? Where are you going, Ben? He said we're ready, and then he went to get a beer. Oh, you got a full one. We're good.
One minute warning.
You made me laugh. The way you danced was truly fun. We had a dream. We had a style. A real good time. Won't give you up. Won't give you up. I'm not that kind. Won't give you up. Won't give you up. I lose my
All right. Are we ready? Let's try that again. Are we ready? All right. Wow, that's a long round of applause. Thank you all for coming out. My name is Ben. I'm a volunteer with Ogden Avalanche, and tonight this is hosted by Roosters B Street. Huge thanks to these guys. Buy some beer, buy some food to support them. They do a great job supporting us and allowing us to use this space so we can teach these. So thank you all for coming out. Tonight's presentation is on terrain management. To continue the game that's gone in the past, terrain will be the word of the day. Terrain. If you'd like to play along at home, terrain means that you drink. So every time I say terrain,
drink.
Okay, here we go. So this is for the winter backcountry user or otherwise all you bums. So what is terrain management? Bueller? Oh, in the back. You want to stay out of them spots that are going to slide. All right. Yeah, that's right, right? So what is terrain management, though? We want to stay out of them. So terrain management is hazard management, right? So why is terrain management important? There's a lot of the T words in here. You guys can take it easy. Anybody? Why is the T management important? Take it easy on these guys. Sorry, Colby in the back. Because you could die. You don't want to get lanchalized. You don't want to get inch-lanched, right? So here we go. So to avoid avalanches, right? To avoid certain avalanche problems based on the forecast that we have, to minimize our consequence if we're caught so you don't die if you get lanchalized, right? And the best part is to find the best snow, because really that's what it's all about. When you look like this, you don't move uphill just for fun. You move uphill because you like to ski powder, and powder is the best ski, right? The best snow to ski is all about the powder, so that's why you do it. So here we have the avalanche triangle. So we talk about the avalanche triangle here. We have three sides. We have avalanche terrain, we have the avalanche trigger, we have unstable snow. The T word might have been really rough. Go. I mean, rally. So this three-sided triangle, because that's how they are. What? Terrain. Huh? So we have this three-sided triangle because that's the way they are. And then we have three sides: that unstable snow, the avalanche trigger, and avalanche terrain. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. That was a bad word to pick. So which side of this triangle can we all control? Can we control unstable snow? Can we control the avalanche trigger? Sometimes, right? But not always. We can't always control for natural triggers, right? Can we control the avalanche terrain we expose ourselves to? Yes, always we can. So avalanche terrain, that's our main ticket. Ooh, see how it gets bigger? Sorry, guys, the T word. So can you recognize avalanche T? We're gonna get high T counts today. Oh, sorry, I got to take out the trash apparently, and tonight I have a B Street lecture. Let me see if I can't get rid of that for you guys. Nope. Anyway, it's gonna be there. Tonight's trash day. So, can you recognize avalanche terrain if we look at our little sweet lasers? Here we have the beautiful Corey Davis and the amazing Nicole Dye. Is this avalanche terrain on this side here? No, right? It's flat. What about this terrain over here? Is this avalanche terrain? Possibly. Sure. Yeah, parts of it, most of it, lots of it. What about this? Avalanche terrain or not? Yes. Does this get skied? Does anyone know where this is? First off, does anyone know where this is? Joe, you can't answer. It's in the Ogden Mountains. But we can't really tell you exactly where it is. I'll get in trouble. Does stuff like this get skied in the Ogden Mountains? Yeah, all the time. You can see the ski tracks right here. No, I'm not that good of a split boarder. So you can see right here, this is avalanche terrain. Here's an avalanche right here and some ski tracks. It's hard to see from the back. Sorry, you should have sat in the front. Avalanche terrain or not? No. Can we still have a lot of fun in non-avalanche terrain? Lots of fun, right? What about this? Avalanche terrain or not? Yeah, definitely avalanche terrain. Actually, this cornice here had fallen earlier that day. There was a big crown line, an avalanche that came all the way down here, and then there was a pile of a couple of broken trees at the bottom. Brandon, I lost your little foam bit that goes on top.
We'll
Thanks.
find out later.
Don't want to get those loud pop-pop-pops. Better? Oh, so much better. Avalanche train or not? Ooh, look at that beautiful photo. Anyone know where this is? The Ogden Mountains, correct. Yes, yes again. The Ogden Mountains. Avalanche terrain or not? Ooh. 3 separate sets of tracks here. There's a set going over here. There's a set going over here. And there's a set here. Right here. Is this avalanche terrain? Yes or no? Okay. What about this? Avalanche terrain, yes or no? No. Avalanche terrain, yes or no? Yes. The answer here is no. Can you have a lot of fun skiing non-avalanche terrain? Yeah. And for example, let's just show you. Oh. Oh, no, not that one. Hold on. We got to find it. Oh, it worked so smooth before this. So here's that side. This is non-avalanche terrain. Tons of fun. This is where I'm saying, oh, and then I'm like, it's so good. Right? So this is about a 28-degree slope, and that is this line. Right here. So tons of fun can be had in that non-avalanche terrain. So we don't always have to be exposing ourselves to have a lot of fun. Ooh, brunch. Avalanche terrain or not? Yes. Defined or undefined avalanche terrain? Okay, so this is where the avalanche could happen. What about over here? What about this giant avalanche right here that caught, carried, and fully buried someone? Right? Can you guys see that? The crown line right here? Ooh, sorry, you should have sat closer. Next time, right in front in the pop zone. So yeah, this is avalanche terrain. This is kind of poorly defined avalanche terrain because you could have an avalanche that could happen anywhere within this zone, even including over here. What about terrain? Is this like a heavy-duty terrain trap? Is there a lot of consequence for getting caught in this style of avalanche? Yeah, you're going to get raked through trees, which is exactly what happened. My friend was buried when I dug him out in this avalanche. He was buried with kind of just like his hand barely poking out as he was like trying to get it out. And he was buried, smashed against a tree. Holes in his coat, you know, sticks all over in his pudgy little body. We like to drink beer, so like we're not Team Fitness that was here earlier. I mean, thanks, Colby. So, what is the best way or the easiest way to know if you're in avalanche terrain? If you're in avalanche terrain, what's the easiest way to know if you're in avalanche terrain or not? Slope angle. Excellent work. So slope angle, when we're thinking too shallow, like this photo here, it's too shallow to slide. Basically, gravity can't overcome the friction pushing the snow down, right? What was that, Nicole? This one? Yeah, it's like 15 degrees. Versus this picture here, where the slope angle, a lot of this terrain, specifically this terrain or this terrain, it's really too steep to think of big slab avalanches or really, really dangerous avalanches. You can have avalanches in this terrain, specifically loose, slough avalanches, which could be really dangerous if you were to get carried over these cliffs or like this cliff here, or maybe drug through these rocks. They could still be really dangerous, but we don't think of slab avalanches here. And then here we have the sweet spot, right? We make a lot of O faces in skiing, like, oh, it's good. Oh, yeah, it's so good. Oh, it's good. And then you're like, oh, shit, right? As this breaks and fractures behind you and then drags you into what terrain do you know below? It could be a cliff, it could be rocks, it could be a giant creek, it could be a gully. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in, consequence multipliers or terrain traps. So how do we measure slope angle? Bueller. Math. Yes, it does involve numbers. You are correct. That was very good. A protractor. Okay. So how do we use a protractor to measure slope angle? It is a good question. That's why I asked it. The speed square. Okay. Right? So an easier way would be to use this tool specifically designed to take slope angles, called a slope dope. We can also use a compass with a clinometer or inclinometer, however you want to say it. Or because it's 2022 and you're all carrying a smartphone, you could just use one of these apps like Gaia, Avenza, Dioptra, the Utah Avalanche Center app, Theodolite, or the free one that just comes as the measuring tool on your iPhone. So this is what Gaia, CalTopo look like. They have this option for slope angle shading. And so this slope angle shading will show you slope angle based on color. So this blue here is really, really steep, like not really skiable for most people except for Joe, maybe Colby, probably just Joe. Terrain. And this orange and red stuff is really what we're looking at. That orange and red terrain, that's going to be our primetime avalanche slopes at 30 to 45. In the Ogden Mountains, we have a lot of this poorly defined avalanche terrain, which means that you could be in it and then you're not, or you can't really tell where you are until it's too late. So can you tell the difference? Here's the Ogden Mountains. This is kind of up above Nordic Valley. Versus this picture here. This is Colorado. It's not Utah. Sorry. I stole this slide from Erie. Can you see the defined avalanche terrain over here? Avalanches happen so regularly here that the vegetation literally can't grow. It gets wiped out all the time. Versus what about over here? Defined or undefined avalanche terrain? Undefined or poorly defined, right? What about here? We've already seen this photo. This is poorly defined avalanche terrain. It could happen in any of these different locations, but it doesn't have a defined area, run, or path. So this is again in the Ogdens. This is another poorly defined. This is the avalanche right here. So you could be skiing through this ultra thick maple, right? And then have an avalanche. This crown is pretty big. That's about a 2.5, maybe a 3-foot crown in a pretty low elevation above, kind of adjacent to where the new lift would be at Nordic. Defined or poorly defined? Kind of a mixed bag, right? Some of these are defined. If you're going to get caught and carried and funneled through, a lot of these would be pretty defined, but some of this terrain over here could be undefined. So it's defined and kind of poorly defined and really just a mixed bag. Looks like fun skiing, but if you get caught, there's a lot of consequence. Again, defined or poorly defined. So this is going to be a poorly defined one. There could be a lot of different tracks here, but it's not a specific start and run. One more. Does anyone know where this is? This is Bailey Cabin Springs, right just off the shoulder of Ben Lomond. And then there's a big crown line. Can anyone see it? It's a really bad photo. Here's the crown line right here. Perfect. Yeah, there it is. You can see in this type of terrain, this big crown line right here. So this was on a surface hoar layer that happened in a widespread event. We got about 1.5 feet of snow, and things were going naturally almost everywhere. It was extremely large avalanches, and they were traveling for huge distances. So this one here had actually traveled all the way along this ridge line, kind of flooded this entire gully, and then remoted over to the little knob here that's the rodeo knob. So there was a ton of avalanche activity on this surface hoar layer. So we can look for these avalanche clues, right? A lack of vegetation, flagged or broken trees, lots of scrub trees or these baby trees at the bottom of these pathways, meaning that the big trees are getting wiped out a lot of times, every few years, pretty frequently. No, that was not English. Sorry. Terrain. Aspect. Why is aspect important? The number one reason. It's going to help us find the best snow. Oh, sorry, Connor. You were going to say it's going to help us find the best snow, right? Yep, that was it. Nailed it. You did so good, right? Besides the best snow and where to find the best skiing, which is the most important thing, it's also going to tell us what the daily forecast is telling us, where the avalanche danger is, where we're going to find certain avalanche problems and types, and whether that's aspect to wind, aspect to sun. But really, most important again is where's the best snow going to be? Because if you're going to hike uphill for 4 hours for 20 minutes of skiing in the Ogden Mountains and then trudge through bushes for another 2 hours, you should probably get some good skiing in. So here's the aspect to wind and sun, right? Here's our wind right here and our sun crust. Big wind cornice. Then we talk about our likely trigger points within terrain. So a lot of these likely trigger points are going to be shallow spots or trees. So right here could be a trigger point. Right here you can also see these rocks could also be a very likely trigger point. Anytime we have a shallower snowpack, that's where we like to think of a weaker snowpack. Those shallow areas, they don't have the insulation of the snow to protect them, so they're more susceptible to a situation like we have going on right now, like a high and dry. So that high and dry portion, we're going to drive faceting or that weakening process. And so a lot of these shallower spots without the insulation are going to drive faceting faster. So rocks, trees, shallow points. A next one would be like anytime you have a cliff band, a lot of those times it's going to be a trigger point. Another one is convex rollovers. These rollovers here, the snow is being pulled in two directions. It's being pulled by the top and then gravity's pulling it over the edge. So it's kind of the weak snapping point. So right as you come over this convex roll, you're more likely to trigger an avalanche there. A lot of these convex rolls are going to end in a concavity, which would be what we call a terrain trap. Wow, there's a lot of T words. I think everyone gave up or they're just past this point. So terrain traps, these are consequence multipliers. These would be things like gullies and ledges. Does anyone know where this photo is from? Farmington Peak, right? This was a young man that was caught, carried, and fully buried. Buried like 11 or 12 feet deep total. It ended up being a fatality, unfortunately. But this is a perfect example of a terrain trap. This was a lake bed where all of this snow came from a large slope above, hit that flat area, and didn't have anywhere to fan out. So because the snow had nowhere else to go, it just continued to accumulate really, really deep. Another one that we have is our creeks, rivers, and lakes. We have a lot of creeks in our area, especially some of these areas we ski. Cutler Creek, Wheeler Creek. We don't breathe very well underwater naturally as humans. And then when we put 6 or 7 feet of snow on top of that, we really don't do very well. The next one would be trees, rocks, and cliffs. Avalanches are very, very violent and fast. So that's a huge problem for us in the Ogden Mountains, especially this is where I like to think of Hell's Canyon. If you go for a ride in Hell's Canyon, you're going to get drug over a lot of rocks and through a lot of trees at a high rate of speed. So in the Ogden Mountains, especially where we're have a lot of trees and have a lot of rocks, most likely if you get caught and carried, this is one of those issues you're going to have is you're going to suffer extreme trauma during that ride. So when we're selecting terrain, we must consistently think or constantly think of these consequences associated with that choice. So Colby said this earlier, when you're going to come through a certain, he said terrain earlier. But when you're coming through a certain terrain, we have to think, if I get caught and carried, what's going to happen? Am I going to get spit out on the apron and kind of just drug for a ride? Or am I going to get caught and carried over cliffs? Am I going to go for a ride through some trees or through some rocks? So then how do we use our forecast to select for specific terrain? And we want to use the compass rose for this. Depending on the terrain we're going to use, whether it's north, east, south, west, lots of different of choices in our skiing. And so depending on the avalanche problem, for example, this day would have been a north through kind of southeast. We would have probably chose to ski on the opposite side of the compass at these upper elevations, or just chose shallow POW that was really, really good. This is the forecast for the day of that. The video I showed you guys, that was the Tom Brady storm. So considerable on those aspects we were on.
Time
We
out.
just
Tom Brady storm?
the Tom Brady storm.
Okay.
It was legendary.
Yeah.
Just like Tom Brady. That's why we named it the Tom Brady storm.
Got you.
You could tell
Got you.
because the way it is. What was that in the back? We got a question. It wasn't 19. 18? Joe says 2019, and I trust him. I don't know. It was a week that I remember, but kind of. I have videos to remember it. A lot of skiing and other things that week. Okay, it was great. I ski uphill and I snowboard downhill, which is the correct way to do it. Duh. Touche. I'll give you that one. Colby, we ski fall line. We ski fall line. If you're traversing, you shouldn't be skiing. Maybe you need to learn how to snowboard. Just saying. Okay, so tools for planning your next tour. Most of these are going to be ways that you can select terrain. So what to do before your tour, obviously check the weather, check the forecast, but then there's a couple of different apps that you can use or a couple different websites. One of them would be Hillmap, Caltopo, Google Earth. Avenza is another great one you can have on your phone. Gaia is one that I personally use. You do pay for Gaia, but I feel like it's worth the money. Caltopo now has an app that's really great. Sorry, do you have it? Go ahead, Connor. Anyway, and then you can also use the Utah Avalanche Center historical observations. This is a great resource to see the areas that you're going, the historical use. Has there been avalanche history in the past? Do we see a lot of that? So the day of your tour, right? Check your gear. Make sure that you weren't digging your car out of the parking lot in the past, and like your shovel's still in the bed of your truck, not in your backpack, so that when you get to like check out a crown line, you're not like, "Hey, bud, can I borrow your shovel?" And they're like, "Why do you need my shovel?" And it's like, "Because mine's still in the truck." And you're like, "Yeah, you can borrow mine. It's fine. Just go ahead and put it in your pack when we're done." Right? So this happens. This is why we do these trailhead checks. We want to make sure that our partners have the gear and that we have the gear and that we have our beacons and they're functioning. So do that trailhead check. Next, we're going to go to the weather forecast, the avalanche forecast. You can check Instagram for a lot of the conditions. There's a lot of people to follow. There's kind of stopped posting since I've been doing this. So sorry. And then talk to your partners and adjust the plan as needed. So here's an example of hillmap.com. You can put that slope angle shading on top of vegetation. So in the Ogden Mountains, we have a lot of bush skiing, as most of you that tour in the Ogden Mountains know. So yeah, we have a lot of bush skiing. And to ski the least amount of bush possible, thanks, Brandon. You can use this software to zoom. Terrain. You can use this software or this website to see where all those trees are and avoid them. Or you can use Caltopo. From here, you can print a map that will look like this. And then you can scan that little QR code in the bottom directly into Avenza. Another one that's a great resource is you can use Google Earth to see what the bed surface would be like, or also to see the vegetation to minimize your bush skiing. And I don't know if this is going to show up, but we can try. But essentially, you can do an aerial view. There you go. So this is Ben Lomond Peak. You can see what? So this is Ben Lomond Peak, and you can see the different bed surfaces to know what you're going to be skiing over. You can also see goalies and subbridges. Ooh, this is really slow. Sorry, my computer is from 2010. Thanks, Brandon. That's great. But anyway, Google Earth is a great resource. And then the last one would be Avenza. Avenza allows you to scan that QR code in your phone, and then you'll show up as a little dot, similar to this one, on this screen for where you're traveling. So you can see if you're approaching avalanche terrain like this orange terrain here, or avalanche terrain like this terrain here. Thank you all for joining us. This is our presentation on avalanche terrain. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. That means I did a really good job. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. If anyone would like, we still have hats and are we still raffling or just hats? We have hats and stickers for free. Hats are $15. On sale.
Well, every day we spend together has touched my heart forever. But I must leave now or never, and seek the life that I must live.